First of all, let's make the flour. I got the grain. In this case, I have rye and einkorn, and I just use the mill to mill it into the flour. Now the flour is ready. We have 3 bowls of flour, 2 with rye, 1 with einkorn, and this is the active starter. It's time to put the starter into the flour in all 3 bowls. So some amount of starter goes into each one. It's another conversation for another video, how to make the starter, how to prepare, how to make sure it's active and so on. But at this point, it's fully ready, it's active, it's ready for bread making for right now. There are various formulas how much of the starter to put into the flour, but the truth is it doesn't really matter much. If you put a little, it's going to take longer for the dough to rise. If you put more, it's going to take faster. It's going to rise faster. At the same time, the slower the fermentation is, the more beneficial the dough is nutrition-wise. So you simply experiment with different amounts of the starter to be added and see what comes out, how long it takes for the dough to rise properly. Depending on the situation, I put enough starter for the rise from 12 to 24 hours, depending on the situation, depending on what I want. But for me, between 12 and 24 hours process, that's perfect. So it's exactly the amount of starter I put. And again, the way you determine it by experimentation. So now you just simply mix it up, add water, get the consistency you want. Now, how much water to put in there also really doesn't matter. It's up to you. Like I put enough water to get the consistency you see. That's exactly what I like. By the way, I'm making the second bowl already now. One with rye is ready. This is the other one with rye. So I put enough water to make the consistency I like, but you could have it hydrated more. You could hydrate it less. It's up to you. Again, experiment with different levels of hydration and you'll get different dough and you'll get different bread. It's going to taste differently. So whatever you like, you have to experiment. You have to make it a few times with different level of hydration, different amount of water, and we'll see what comes out. So this is the second bowl with rye is ready. Now what I do here, I simply mix it enough to for the flour to be fully saturated with the water. That's all. I don't really do anything more to that. That's going to be the next stage. And this is the third bowl. It has einkorn and it has different color and it's going to feel differently. You'll see this is einkorn. Now, to reiterate, at this stage, I simply mix it enough for the flour to be saturated with water fully without like white flour left anywhere. That's the goal. We don't do anything more than that at this stage. Now at this moment, once I'm done with saturating all the flour with water and mixing it all with starter and so on, it's going to be waiting time for about 1 hour. So for now, I just take the starter and I feed it. So the starter is going to be ready for next time. Right now I'm feeding the starter. What it practically means, simply adding some whole wheat flour and water into whatever is left over from the starter and mixing it all up. It doesn't have to be whole wheat. In this case, I'm using whole wheat starter. It could be the rye, it could be something else, but right now I'm using whole wheat starter. So that's all. The starter is put aside, and now after 1 hour, I uncover the bowls and add some salt. Salt is necessary for the fermentation process, and officially it should be 2 to 3%. or the amount of flour by weight, but I just do it visually. I don't really measure. Now it's time to use an electrical mixer. It would be very difficult to do it by hand, although possible. I used to do it by hand in the past. Now you see I'm helping a little bit for it to be mixed more evenly. This is because this is rye. It doesn't have gluten in it, and if I don't help, it's not going to mix it too well. Now wheat, einkorn, and other grains with gluten, you don't have to help. It just mixes it. It involves the whole thing. It mixes very nicely on its own. But here I help a little bit to make it more even. It's almost done. Now, when I use an electrical mixer, I do it for 7 to 8 minutes approximately. But it's not just time, I see visually. It's going to make sense. At a certain point, you'll see that it's going to be ready. But ready means different for rye and for einkorn or for wheat or whatever you're going to do. So once you actually do it, between the time, 7 to 8 minutes, and the general feeling, how it looks like, you'll know exactly what it is. You won't need any explanations, really. You'll just see it. Now you simply cover and let it stay for, in this case, for approximately 12 hours. But it could be anything between 4 and 24 hours, really. And now it's time for the second bowl. And it's also rye. Now the second bowl is ready. It needs to be covered, and now it's time for the third bowl with einkorn. Now einkorn looks and feels totally differently, and you don't need to help anything here by hand. It's gonna do it by itself. It has enough gluten, but very good gluten, not like regular commercial wheat has. Many people who have problems with gluten in regular wheat, they don't have any problems with gluten in einkorn. It's an original grain, ancient grain. Now it's all ready, and we have 3 bowls with dough, 2 with rye, 1 with einkorn. It's very important to notice the level where it is at in each bowl, because after quite a few hours, it's gonna rise, and you have to know where it's ready for baking. Now, in my case, I know, because I've done it many times already, I know it's going to take approximately 12 hours. Well, whether it's 11 or 13, it doesn't really make much difference. But it's going to take approximately 12 hours. So for 12 hours, I'm not going to touch it. I'm not going to look there. Now, some people say it has to double in volume. Now, it's more correct to say that any whole grains flour, it really has to become 1.5 increase in volume. Now, if you remember what it was, you see clearly that it rised tremendously. But it's double, 1.5, I don't really know, but I see that it's really good. It has become very good now, and it's ready to be taken to the trays. There's parchment paper there, and there are ways to make it fancier, but I prefer something which is quick. That's why this is how I do it. I don't know anything fancy. I simply take like a little bit, sort of enough for a roll, each one, and I put it on a parchment paper on a tray, and that's all. Very not fancy, but very simple, quick and easy. Now, I still do something very fancy, not like the way I'm showing here, but I do it like once in a quarter. But on everyday basis, every single day, this is how I bake. This is what I'm showing it right now. Now, rye I flatten just a little bit with the fingers. Einkorn, I don't touch. I just put it the way it is, and I don't try to flatten it. That's it. Just comes out tasty like this. Now, in this case, I had 3 bowls, and it comes out that I have 6 trays, 2 trays per 1 bowl, and 4 of the trays have rye and 2 have einkorn. Now, this is what it is now. I just have to cover all 6, and they're going to wait for approximately 1 hour. They're going to rise a little, and after 1 hour, now you could do it in 45 minutes, an hour and a half, but generally it's 1 hour. After 1 hour, they are going into the oven, and I do them 3 at a time. So 3 of the 6 trays are going to wait for 1 hour, and the other 3 is going to be probably 1.5 hours. Now everything is covered. After 1 hour, it goes straight into the oven. The oven is preheated for 350 degrees. Actually, I do it 375, but once I put it in the oven, I make it less. Now, after 20 minutes, I take them all out. After 20 minutes in the oven, in 350 degrees, I take it all out, and I put them straight on without parchment paper and without the trays, just straight. And it goes back into the oven for approximately another 10 minutes. Now you have to experiment with times, because the way I do it here is 20 minutes plus 10 minutes. But you could do a little more, a little less. It depends. It's going to be different. It's going to taste differently. This is what I prefer. Okay, so they're back into the oven, in this case for another 10 minutes. Okay, so the first batch is ready. It comes out. You see there's a difference in color. There are 4 rolls einkorn. They are much lighter. The rest is rye. And the second tray is all einkorn. You could see right away difference in color. Now the second batch is out after 20 minutes. Now I just have to flip it over, put straight on, and bake for another 10 minutes. This time it is all rye. Back into the oven. Okay, 10 minutes later, the second batch is ready. Now it's all ready for today. We are done. It's important to know that even though when the bread is out of the oven, it's not yet fully ready. It's going to take another approximately 45 minutes to have it fully ready, and it's getting ready right there out of the oven. So ideally it should be like this. Not even on the parchment paper, but the first batch I had no choice, so I put them on parchment paper. By the way, I'm using heat-resistant gloves. Very important. Small detail, but very important. 40-45 minutes later, you could either eat it or put in the freezer. Now, long term, it's best kept in the freezer. Whenever you want to eat it, take it a little in advance out of the freezer, moisten it, and put in the oven for about 10 minutes. It's going to be perfect.